Go where your best prayers take you, unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. Breathe deeply of the glad air and live one day at a time. Know that you are precious and learn to trust. Amen. Well, again, welcome to all of you, and I'm quite impressed that many of you stayed out late at a football game, but you're here today, so that's good. And our hello to everyone who's joining us this morning by way of Channel 12. You're an important part of our family. We're glad that you're watching and worshiping with us. I hope you read the words of hymn 603. Sometimes I think we miss, and it's a theme of mine, and will continue to be as we have Jason in place with the choir to teach hymn today. But read the words again; they are powerful. They really speak to our theme today about this business of the mission of the church. I want to tell you a story of. It comes from Tony Campolo. Do you know him? He is an evangelist. But he's a really different kind of cut of a human. He's written 20 books or so. His work has been mostly in the inner city. He does a lot of youth ministry. And his drive is to get young people attached to the gospel, living the gospel in significant ways for others. That's what he's good at. And he's really good at it. He's a sociologist by trade. He's had a PhD in talk. He's got a very diverse background. And he has one story after another that are just killer stories. And this is one of them. This touched me when I read this. Not long ago, he lives in Philadelphia. It was cold, day like this, snowing, sleeting. He was out walking to an appointment, and so for this appointment, he was dressed, had his suit on, had his black coat on, and his hat and his gloves, and dressed nicely, and kind of making his way down the street. And as he was walking in his neighborhood, which is an inner city neighborhood, he saw a homeless man. And he figured he's homeless. He was dirty, disheveled. He had gloves on, but his fingers were exposed. He was really dirty. He had food in his beard. His hair was sticking out. Just everything about him was dirty. But he seemed comfortable, standing there kind of drinking a cup of coffee. And Tony Campolo is really open about this, and he kind of walks by and says good morning. And as he walks by, the man says, "You want a sip of my coffee?" And Campolo slows down. He said, No, thank you. I'm fine, but thank you. That is really kind of you to offer that. And he takes a few steps and he stops. And he turns around and he said, I would like a sip of your coffee. He goes back and takes a sip of this man's coffee. Hands it back and he said, that is really kind of you. It is cold and it warms me up. He said, tell me something. Why did you offer me coffee? And he said, well, I spent the night out last night and I went over to McDonald's, didn't have any money, but they were nice enough to give me this black coffee and it tastes good. And I was taught as a child in church that when God gives you something good, a good gift, you share it with others. Tony Campolo said, I understand that. He said, well, is there something I can do for you? Thinking the man would say, how about $5? He said, no, I'm fine. Thank you. It's been good talking. So he starts to walk again, and then the man says toward his back, there really is something. And he turns around, the man's walking toward him with his arms out, and he said, would you give me a hug? And they embraced. Campolo says when he was walking away, he said the strangest thought came into his brain. He said, I was thinking, I don't think I just hugged a homeless man. He said, maybe I just hugged Jesus. I want to take you back a couple of weeks ago to Tom's powerfully great sermon that the business we're in, and not all Christians agree, is to identify the Christ in the people about us. That's our task. That the Christ in me might be able to see the Christ in you. Or sometimes, I don't know how you feel, I'm not sure how much Christ is in me. But I sure see it in others, and it's important for me to stop and see it. And then last week, Chris built on a thought that was powerful to hear about so often you and I, all of us do this, but because of what we see, our own shortcomings, what we can do or not do, we limit God's expectations not only of us, but of the community around us. A great cautionary tale, but another great thought. And those two thoughts I've carried along this week as we slow down to think about St. John's, unashamedly one time a year to really stop and say, kind of who are we? What are we about? What's the center of our vibrancy? What is the center of our mission? Because you realize that's what makes us distinct. Christians have mission. We're not, I was a Rotarian. I love the Rotary Club. They have mission as well. Lots of organizations have mission. And it's interesting, often we see it in an organization like that, but we don't see it in ourselves. Christians have mission. It's the reason we exist. Without mission, it becomes just a kind of a good, nice group of people who welcome each other and identify people because we are like them or we want to be like them. But that's not what God asks of us. He calls us out. Jesus took an interesting image in the Old Testament. He was Jewish. He thought of himself as chosen. Do you remember the word he turned it into? Called. He said, yes, we're chosen people, but more importantly, we are called people. And then St. Paul picked up with that theme, as did the early church. In fact, the word for church means that. We are the called out people. And you may never have heard that, but write it down, put it somewhere where you can see it. You are called out, and I am too. It's not a joke. It's not jargon. There is no other reason for you to profess Christianity without being called out. Seriously. Otherwise, it is just good feelings. And they're important, but not to God. What is important is the way we touch one another and touch the world as the Christ in me sees the Christ in you, and sometimes see no limitation to what that might be. So I see it every day. Sharon's right. The majority of our money goes to pay for salaries and to keep this building going. The high majority of every penny we raise does that. But I'll remind you that the mission is what we often don't slow down to see, what that platform of a good organization offers the world. Do you realize that we are the largest private donation to the Volunteer Ministry Center? I think that's accurate. We are by far the largest gift from a church to the homeless. Be proud of it. It's your money. We do that. They are our first check. We write 2 checks. That check goes, and the check that's right beside it is the money we give to the diocese. We are the largest, by far the largest donator to the diocese that pays for clergy and other small congregations to do what we're doing this morning that can't pay for themselves. And some of our money, yes, goes on to the national church. I know some of you struggle with that. But it often goes to powerful things too that collectively we can do together that individually we cannot do alone. And then the incredible charity that we do here all the time. Think about it. Really kind of ease into this. Kind of, if you've tuned out, tune back in. Tune back in with me for a second. Second Harvest last year, we did a few days collection, particularly for the backpack program, where they send food home with children, never knowing we would do this at Green Magnet. Last year, you all donated $15,000 in a couple of days. $15,000. Elaine said, we don't see that, and we try to raise money all the time from people, and y'all just did it. Or the teen gifts, or the Christmas things that we do, the angel tree, thousands of dollars given just like that. Or when Haiti had the earthquake, they said, we need a cathedral. We raised $10,000 in one Sunday. Are you aware of that? Be proud of it. Do you hear? It's money into mission. Money's important. It's not idle. For goodness sakes, it has to pay for things. Good wishes don't put people in houses. Good wishes don't build buildings. Good wishes do not buy food. Money does that. And you're contributing all the time. It's a phenomenal kind of contribution that we offer. You know, we collected $15,000 in one Sunday last year to buy the women at the YWCA an opportunity to go get new clothes so that they go get a job and go to job interviews. And Carolyn Sylvie was kind enough with her firm to coach the women how to do it.
Do you see what money does? It begins to collect us in a powerful way. Don't put it down. Don't cheapen it. Money's important. It moves things. It moves the mission of God. It pulls us to the calling that we have to do something beyond ourselves. And it is important. And it is important, since we are the richest people in the world, to be generous. It is nothing less than that. And we are generous again and again and again. Haven't even mentioned St. Anne's, the Bronx, New York, where our collective money pours people and energy and, yes, things, goods, and services into that community, far away from us, where so many of our children have gone year in and year out to learn what is it to live in this world. What might we see of ourselves? And if your children have been, if you've been, you realize how significant it is. These young people carry these experiences their entire lives. They talk about their entire lives of doing this work. It is not a small thing. But beyond the money, the number of you who week in and week out show up at the Volunteer Ministry Center to sit down with the man just like Tony Campolo ran into, to coach them, to love them, to help them find the right resources, to help not duplicate resources. You realize the VMC is smart, and they're smart because of you, the volunteers. We work together in a network of real care where we spend our money very expeditiously, very well, in order to care for those who often cannot care for themselves because of addiction, because of mental illness. The majority of people on the street, by the way, at any one time are veterans of the United States military. As we care for them, it is important. Slow down and think what we're doing, impacting real lives. And so many of you go over to the YWCA. We have a group of you go over. They do games and do dinner. We've done a candlelight service for Valentine's. Several of the women said they had never had a candlelight dinner in their lives. A place where they can trust the men who show up. Men who live good lives, who honor women. What a gift that is. And what a good ministry it is. And so many of you serving on the board at the Y, the VMC, and other places. And I know many of you do it. Every board I talk to, I have board chairs all the time saying, you don't know what a gift it is, so-and-so's on the board, and it's you guys. Every day it happens to me. About every board in Knoxville has somebody that sings from St. John's. Be proud of that. That is part of the gifting we do to really reach out, to do something good, to really be the mission people we are to be. And then Green Magnet. And this morning you're going to get a green magnet, Tommy Siler's thought, that you get to put on your refrigerator. And remember the ministry we're starting, helping right now pack backpacks to send home for the kids so they have food on the weekend. Many of you will be reading soon. Several of you are already going over and sitting and eating with the children so that they have someone to talk to, an adult they can trust, because they're starved for companionship. And Stuart Sprouse has helped them refit their playground. Money again, but people. And more of you will be there, I promise. They're going to keep calling on us. Or the Daughters of the King, who week in and week out pray for all of us, that undergirds and supports everything we're doing. It's not an idle thing. I have some friends who never have been in this place. She is very ill. You cannot know what it meant to her that she knew that the Daughters of the King, while she went through this precancerous and then cancer and then surgery, that these women were saying her name every day. Changed her life. She had never experienced that before. Or the Brotherhood of St. Andrew, stepping up, cooking a meal for an organization here or there, church here or there, helping the men's when they gather up at DeBose each year to cook. Or recently, you may not know that they built a ramp for someone because they could not access their house. You see small things, but a lot of things. Or the care team visiting the hospital every day. If you've been in the hospital, you've seen one of the care team. They're with the clergy visiting, trying to follow up, stay in touch. Simply a simple amount of loving when we're ill. Or the whole range of the St. John's Friends of the things they're doing. Delivering flowers. Every Sunday, the altar flowers get repackaged and go out to someone who, for them, having that contact having us touch their lives is very meaningful. Or the lay Eucharistic ministers every week taking communion to someone who is sick, ill, or can no longer come to church. Or to those of you delivering cooking meals for that wonderful time when you have a baby, it's the most isolating time in your life, and taking meals and welcoming a new baby into a household. Or for those of you calling people who are now homebound and calling them weekly, often several times a week, just to say hello, just to stay in touch. I have only begun. I'm not kidding. We were talking about it. Tom said, you realize you're only about 20% of the way in. I said, I know. I'm already tired. 20% is all I've noted. Or the lay readers every day showing up for morning prayer. You're not there. Half the time I'm not there. They will say the prayers for all of us, whether we are there or not. If they're alone, they say the prayers. You realize we start every day in prayer at the cathedral. It is a lay group that does this. Again, ministry, mission, being called out. The choir, goodness, who would show up for 2 hours to sing with Jason? I wouldn't. I'm just kidding. But I mean supporting, and more you're going to find music integrated into everything we're doing with a new kind of consciousness about where is the place of music, where's the place of worship, and where is that place of worship? It's simple. For us, I don't know what you were trained, I'm going to retrain you. We are trying to become what we worship, and it's not ourselves, by the way. Yes, I'm patting us on the back, I'm blowing our horn, but we are trying to become like Jesus and God, this Trinity, this movement of the Spirit in the world that we worship. And worship is terribly important. And then the thousands of ways that all of you do spontaneous, direct, personal things to speak of that business of the Christ reaching out, of not limiting God's experience in the world. The Sal's, Mary and Jonathan, taking flu shots over to our neighbors at the Steps house. Those men who are trying to get off the street, get out of addiction. A simple gesture, I cannot tell you how important it is to them to be touched by someone who bothers to care about their welfare. That's what they get. They don't get a flu shot. They got love in a flu shot. You see, every day we're going to work. Every day we're being called out. Every day we're responding to the gospel that said, take care of the hungry and thirsty. Look for those who are alone and strangers. Look for the people who are naked, who are vulnerable in the world. Look, and respond to those who are bound up. Whether they are far off, next to you, in your family, or someone that you pass on the street and will never meet. Every day we respond to mission. We've done it for 170 years. It is my prayer, and I bet you join me, that we do it for the next 170. Simply, God bless you. I cannot say that enough. Enjoy it. It's meaningful. It's rich. What we have is valuable, and we'll keep it going with your help and our help together. Amen.